What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 389 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. If you haven't already seen it, check out my exclusive interview up right now with former WWE champion, now author Drew McIntyre, talking all about his new book, WrestleMania Backlash, fan reactions, John Cena, broken dreams. We talk about that a little bit as well. That interview is up now right here on the channel, so if you haven't already, check it out. And it's in video form, too, a very rare video interview with the WWE superstar. I've done a few video interviews lately, the last few months with EC3 and Nat Taven, Tommy Bechtold, Ryan Nemeth, among other people, but not really usually people from WWE. So that was a real treat. So check it out right here in the channel. We talked for almost a half an hour about the book and everything else going on in his career right now. If you guys want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So let's get started here first with Joe M. from YouTube. Their first question, I personally find Karrion Kross to be the best and most captivating talent WWE has brought in a long time. I think everything from the way he works in the ring, on the mic, and from a character perspective is awesome, to the point where I went out of my way to watch things that he's done in Impact, but I seem to be in the minority, as every post NXT has on Instagram about him has comments about how boring he is. You would know a lot about his prior work, a lot better than I would, I guess, as you've always been a fan of him. Or is he boring, or are fans just conditioned to every wrestler, including the big guys, having to do flips and kicks, etc.? So the thing with Karrion Kross, he is a bit of a polarizing figure, as I don't know if it's the majority of people find him boring. I certainly haven't found that. I'm not really on Instagram, but a majority of people that I follow on Twitter and listen to podcast with and read reviews from and stuff like that seem to enjoy his work as much as I do. I am more familiar with Kross beyond the NXT stuff. I did follow him in Impact. Before then, I was familiar with him in Lucha Underground. And I see a lot of people praising, not a lot of people, but I do see a segment of fans praising the stuff he did at Lucha, like, oh man, we need to see that Karrion Kross in NXT. From what I can recall, and I watched every episode of Lucha Underground, I do not remember this guy having many, if any, matches in Lucha frickin' Underground. I remember the character. He was doing the weird bunny thing with Paul London and some other people. I remember the character. I don't remember him having many matches there at all before the show ended after the 4th season. I do remember his work in Impact. He didn't really stand out to me at that point. I remember people saying then that he would go on to do bigger and better things elsewhere. I didn't see anything early on from him in Impact. Not that he was bad, but he didn't really stand out to me in a way where I thought, okay, this guy will be a future Impact World Champion. Until later on, when he had matches with Eddie Edwards, I thought they worked really well together. He was aligned with Austin Aries for a time. He had a couple of matches with Johnny Nitro or Johnny Impact or whatever his name, John Morrison's, whatever name he went by at that point. He had matches with him. I think he teamed with Moose for a while. He had matches with Brian Cage. Good matches, but again, not to the point where I thought he could be a star. I didn't really start to hear those rumblings, to be honest with you, until after he was taken off TV. They wouldn't give him his release. And then I'm like, okay, this guy might be a good pickup for another promotion. And then sure enough, in NXT, they presented him as a star. Karrion Kross might not be the greatest in-ring wrestler in the world, but he is good enough to where if you give him the star treatment, he will feel like a star. Really, honestly, and I've said this with a lot of people, you can make almost anyone a star. And I used him as a very prominent example, but Jinder Mahal, I bash on him a lot, but he was a guy where, for as abysmal as he is in the ring, and we saw that on Monday's Raw, I don't give a fuck that he's back. Who gives a shit about Jinder? Personally, I don't. Maybe other people do, I'm sure. I don't. But he was given the star treatment. He was terrible in the ring. He was terrible on the mic, but they booked him like a star, for the most part, when he was WWE champion. He was given the great entrance and the theme song and the Bollywood Boys, the stable, everything. He had the presentation of a star. So if they really, really want to make someone a star, no matter how subpar they might be in certain categories, they can make people a star. NXT does that a lot. not with people that are subpar. They take people that are usually good to great and make them even more of a star than they already are. Karrion Kross, to me, is a prime example of that. I haven't seen many amazing matches this guy has had, but I have seen enough good matches to know that the guy is very, very good. And to me, a lot like you, he stands out to me as someone who feels like a star. He feels special. You got the Scarlett connection there. I love that pairing. Even before they came into NXT, Impact never did that. Scarlett was a star in Impact, but they never actually paired them off on TV, and I think they were dating even at that point. Pretty sure that's where they met, if I'm not mistaken. So Impact never paired them off on the show. I think that's a money pairing. I think Scarlett is perfect in that role. I didn't really give a shit about her matches in Impact. She's more of a presence type of person, as is Karrion Kross, but Karrion Kross is a much better wrestler than Scarlett Bordeaux ever was in Impact, or Ring of Honor, or wherever she was previously. I just love the act. The entrance is great. His promos are getting a lot better. I think he's found his footing in the role that he's he's in right now, as this tweener, badass, babyface heel, whatever. I mean, he had this great glorified squash last night against Austin Aries. I really enjoyed the Finn Balor match. I thoroughly enjoyed the Santos Escobar match that he had a couple of months ago. The Damian Priest match I thought was also solid. I'm a big Karrion Kross fan personally. I've always enjoyed the guy. He can speak very eloquently, not only in his promos. I've had the chance to interview him twice. One of them is here on the channel, the other one is not. The first one is not. The second one I thought was great. I thought that was a great conversation we had. And that went up, I believe, in February before the Escobar match, if I'm not mistaken. So you could check that out here on the channel. But yeah, he's very well spoken. He's a very intelligent guy. But moreover than anything, he feels like a star. And I agree with you. I know I love a lot of people who find him boring, but I also know of a lot of people who feel the same way that I do, that he gives off that star aura, and that people will watch the show for him. They'll stop what they're doing, and they'll watch the entrance, or they'll listen to a promo, or watch a match, or whatever. He's just so different than everyone else, not only in NXT, but just in wrestling right now, where I think that's why people find him boring. And I think Bray Wyatt has that same kind of issue with fans. I mean, currently it's because of the bad booking, and he's been booked terribly for years now, to the point where people just don't care. But when he first arrived in WWE, people were saying, even at that point, when he first debuted in the main roster, oh, this guy's boring. I don't see what's so special about him, because he's different. And I'm not even saying like, oh, you have to agree with me, otherwise you're wrong. It really is a matter of personal preference. If you don't like the more character style type performers, and that's exactly what Karrion Kross is. The first time that we spoke for an interview, he mentioned how he grew up on that era of WWE, of larger-than-life characters. To me, he is a larger-than-life character, and the booking has only helped, and that he hasn't lost at all since he arrived in NXT over a year ago. I'm a big Karrion Kross fan. I really can't point to you any one amazing match he had prior to NXT. I didn't follow some of his, AAA work. He was in there for a little while. He might have had a quick pit stop in MLW. Definitely other promotions. I wasn't following him at that point. I just knew of him from Lucha, and more so Impact. And I thought he had something about him then, not to the point where he could be a future world champion. I get that vibe from him now, though. So I am a Karrion Kross fan. If you're not, it's fine. But yeah, you are right to a certain extent, where people are conditioned to see every big guy do flips and the kicks and everything else, like Keith Lee, for example. He's a guy, for a guy of his size, is extremely agile, athletic, and exciting, where he can do a lot of things a lot of people his size can't do. Not to say that Kross can't do stuff that Lee does, because he probably can, he just chooses not to. And to an extent, with Keith Lee, he probably shouldn't be doing a lot of that stuff in every single match he has. He's not on TV currently, but when he was on TV, he was doing a lot of the flips and dives and shit that he probably shouldn't be doing in every single fucking match. You gotta keep certain stuff special. But yeah, you are right to a certain extent, where people expect from these big guys the flips and the moonsaults and the dives and everything else. Kross ain't doing that shit. He's way more methodical. If you find it boring, that's fine. But what one person might find boring, and it's the same thing the other way around with the flips and the kicks, people might find that overbearing. It really is, to me, more a matter of personal preference. But if you're asking me, I enjoy Karrion Kross. I did follow his work pre-WWE. I enjoyed his work, but I've become even a bigger fan now that he's in WWE, with the WWE machine behind him, with the presentation and the entrance and the promos. I really feel, like I said, have really been locked in, and he's not allowing Scarlett to do all the talking for him. She's just kind of there to add to the act. So, yeah, hopefully it's on to bigger and better things for him beyond NXT, and he is treated as a bigger star in the main roster, as big of a star on the main roster as he is currently in NXT. Because there's a lot of guys who get that star presentation, and it doesn't translate well to the main roster. Bobby Roode is one name that just stuck out in my mind right now, where to me, he's a star. Currently, does he feel like one? No. I mean, they're all WWE superstars, but I'm talking like when they come out, you see the robe or the suit that he's wearing or hear a promo that he cuts, and he gives off that vibe. A lot of people said the same thing about Bobby Roode. He was NXT champion for a very long time. And because he doesn't do the flips and the kicks, people thought he was boring. I thought he was a star because he cut great promos, he got great heat, he had more methodical matches, but a lot of those matches were very good. They're different than anything else in NXT or on the main roster or really just wrestling in general, but because it was different, I enjoyed it. Different isn't always the best, I will say that, but I did think, that more old school approach, he had it, Karrion Kross has that, and I personally enjoy it. Joe's second question, would you like to see Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns, and Karrion Kross all hold on to their titles until Survivor Series this year, where they could face off in a triple threat, assuming they do the brand face-off format, or would having 3 dominant heel champions for so long make the shows feel interchangeable? It's tough to say what the year will bring. For Roman, for one, I could say that if he held the championship until... I don't know if I could say actually for him. I was going to say, he could hold the championship until next year's Mania, and it would be perfectly fine with how great his character is. And that is true, but there could come a point in 6 months where people aren't digging the Roman Reigns stuff as much. He has been champion for about, 8 months now? But by June, July, August, and he keeps beating people, there will absolutely be a segment of fans who get bored by Roman Reigns continuing to retain his title and win as a heel. The same can be said for Lashley or Karrion Kross. It really doesn't matter who it is, babyface, heel, tweener. If fans get too much of the same thing, and this really is with fans, it's a curse and a gift. It's a gift and a curse, where they'll get sick of the current thing so much, where they want to see that new thing. And I talked about this with Drew in our interview today that went up earlier, and that people always want that next thing. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not a good thing. Bobby Lashley, it feels like people aren't turning on him, but definitely with Drew, people have already online anyway, have started to turn on him because he's been in the championship picture for a year now. I mean, this is why John Cena was booed so relentlessly, and that was 15 years ago, even before the internet was what it is today. And with Cena, it was a little bit different because he was booked a little bit different, and I don't know, but, with a lot of people, because they're on TV so much and they're featured so prominently in one role, even though they belong to be in that role, and they should be a mainstay in the main event scene, fans get tired very quickly if they're not seeing something new every 10 seconds. I guarantee you, if they called up Adam Cole, for example, tomorrow, people would be tired of seeing him within a matter of months. One, because the booking in the main roster is not the greatest. But 2, it's the same thing with AEW. People were bored of Jon Moxley's championship reign after a while because he was champion for such a long time. There is such thing as not good long-term storytelling and long-term booking, but with AEW, with their championship picture, I think they've done a great job of it. There are certain long-term stories AEW is told that I don't really give a shit about, but at least with the championship picture, I think they've done a great job. WWE, and I was about to tweet this earlier, and I'll probably put it out later, for all the faults this company has creatively, and there's a lot of them, specifically with Raw, they know how to book their world champions. Kross, Reigns, Lashley, even Walter over in NXT UK have all had extremely dominant reigns. They're all heels, for one. WWE does a better job of booking heels than babyfaces. Drew has been a pretty good babyface. Beyond him, though, and Daniel Bryan was awesome as well, I can't think of many people that have excelled in that role. Kevin Owens is a very good babyface, but they booked him to look like such a loser in the Roman Reigns feud where it's hard for people to take him seriously. They either have these people lose too often or win too often. They can't find a good balance with the babyfaces. It feels like they have that old school format. At least they know how to book the heels to a certain extent. I mean, there was a certain point where they didn't know how to book anybody, but at least they're knowing how to book Lashley properly, Roman properly, Karrion Kross properly, and that's NXT, and Walter, same thing, where with NXT, you kind of expect them to be booked properly. There haven't been any real bad NXT champions from what I can remember, But yeah, it's cool to see all three guys book so dominantly. And I think they're all having great reigns. Karrion Kross just won the championship recently, and Bobby's only been champion for 2 months. But none of these guys, I mean, I think Lashley was pinned by Riddle on a random episode of Raw. I don't know if it was Legends Raw or the week before that or the week after or whatever. But he was pinned by Riddle at least one time. Other than that, though, I don't think Lashley has been pinned since the initial McIntyre feud a year ago. Roman has not been pinned since he came back from his absence last year, and Karrion's never been pinned in WWE. He lost that one tag team title match with Finn a few weeks ago, which was fucking dumb why they even did that. I think it was before TakeOver. But other than that, all three guys have been booked amazingly well. If only they could book their baby faces to look as strong as the heels. And sometimes they have a period where they do a great job with the baby faces, but more often than not, that's not usually the case. McIntyre's been a great baby face. Bryan was up until he left, and he's kind of bulletproof at this point. But yeah, to answer your question, if they were all champions come Survivor Series, one, should they be? And I would like to say yes, but the hard thing is, again, people turn on shit so quickly. Survivor Series, as we speak right now, is not for another 6 months. And anything can change in that time. People get hurt, but even more so than that, people also get really popular. What if there's a guy, what if Big E gets super, super, super over in the next 6 months? It's like with Becky Lynch when she got hot and when Kofi got hot. Sometimes people get really, really popular in a short span of time, and it's hard to not, you got to strike when the iron is hot, and it's hard to not capitalize on that. You got to capitalize on it. So if someone comes up on Raw and is super fucking popular, how do you not put the WWE Championship on them and take it off of Lashley? Same thing with Roman. I think with Roman, I'm positive I have more faith with him. Probably with Kross in NXT, it's a little different. When Lashley loses that championship, I fear that he's done as a main eventer. With Roman, I know he's bulletproof. He's not going anywhere. If he loses that championship, I guarantee you he will get it back soon after and walk into WrestleMania next year as the champion. I really do. I feel that way. I feel like he's going into WrestleMania next year as the defending champion, regardless of whether he loses it before then or not. He could lose it to Big E at a SummerSlam and then gain it back at like the next pay-per-view or two, just to give Big E his moment, and then put him back in chase mode. I could totally see that. With Lashley, once he loses, I feel like it will be the Kofi Kingston treatment, where he's done in the championship picture. Drew, thankfully, has been the exception. He lost the championship. He got it back 3 weeks later, but he's still been very much involved in the mix. I think McIntyre has built up enough stock. His stock is high enough, and this is all because of the booking, and the people are good enough. It's really depending on how WWE books these people. His stock is strong enough to where I think he'll be a main eventer, a mainstay in the main event scene for as long as the company wants him to be, which I think will be a while. A couple of years. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't see Drew bouncing back down to main event duty with fucking Jinder Mahal. Like, he's another prime example of a guy who, was WWE champion for a long time, but because he wasn't received well, and he was never really that good to begin with, he went right back down to mid-card after that, was never again considered for a championship run or for an aggressive push, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. So Lashley I'm a little bit worried about, not because he's not good, but because of the booking. Like, do they only see him as a one-time champion? He loses it and that's it? That's what I fear. I would love to see a three-way, but then again, the question is, who wins? Because not only does someone have to win, but someone also has to get pinned. None of these guys have been pinned at all, so do you waste that first pinfall on a fucking random Survivor Series match? You know what I mean? Like, when they did Drew and Roman, and both of them were extremely strong champions. When Roman had first come back last year, won the Universal Championship, and Drew was still WWE champion. The thing with that, though, was that McIntyre hadn't been pinned all year. I think he may have been pinned in like one match, maybe, but he was pinned by Orton at Hell in a Cell like right before Survivor Series. So we knew that he could be beaten. He had already lost once before, which was still dumb, but he had already lost like at the pay-per-view before that. So him losing at Survivor Series to Roman, in my opinion, was perfectly fine. Could you have done a non-finish? Yeah, but that would have been extremely disappointing and shitty on it for a pay-per-view, especially for a big champion versus champion match. With these three guys, none of them have lost yet. Maybe Lashley will lose soon. I imagine he will. He could lose. He could lose as soon as Sunday. Same thing with Roman. Karrion could lose to the next frickin' TakeOver, but I don't think all three guys will be champion come Survivor Series. I think if anyone, Lashley will probably be the first one to lose his championship just because of the nature of Raw, how it is, how they like to switch things up a lot. Cross, they'll probably have him hold the championship until, one, he's ready for the main roster, and or two, someone else comes along that they feel is suitable to take that championship off of him. Maybe Kyle O'Reilly. He's the only name that stands out to me as someone who could take that championship from Karrion at some point. Because Balor, been there, done that. Cole, been there, done that. Gargano, Ciampa, been there, done that. I'm not really sure who else there is. Pete Dunne, maybe, but he's not exactly at that level yet, in my opinion, so probably Kyle. But anyway, to make a very short question very long, long answer short here, I do think, or short answer long rather, as far as how I answered your question, I do think that it would be a great triple threat, but someone would have to lose. So I assume someone will probably lose their championship before Survivor Series even comes around. And we won't have to deal with that issue anyway of who loses and whatnot. Brandon A. from YouTube, his question was, what would be the perfect WWE calendar? I want it to be part fantasy booking, but part realistic, so you can't drastically shorten the pay-per-view schedule. You still need to have at least one each month, even the month before WrestleMania. And also, you have to include the 2 Saudi shows, not because I like the Saudi shows, but to honor the contract. You can bring back old shows, use variations from other companies, add special events, or include certain stakes and stipulations to whatever shows you want. I'm not asking for a takeover schedule, but if you want to get creative with that too, go for it. I think the takeover schedule is perfect as is. Takeover does around 5 to 6 takeovers a year. They've already done 3, including next month's In Your House show. Would it be? Yeah, because they did Vengeance Day in February, Takeover Stand and Deliver in April, and now In Your House in June. So I could, obviously, War Games is another one they'll do. They'll probably do one around SummerSlam time. So they do around 5 to 6 a year. I think doing 4 is perfect. 5 is fine. 6 might be too many for NXT, especially if you do like the TV specials in between, like they've done in the last year with Great American Bash and with Halloween Havoc and New Year's Evil and shows like that. I don't think you need a takeover every other month, even though they've kind of done that in recent years. That doesn't really bother me, but 5 to 6 takeovers a year, if not 4, probably 5. 5 is probably better, I think, is the money number. I would love that amount of pay-per-views for WWE on the main roster. I realize that's not realistic. AEW has 4 pay-per-views a year, and I think it's perfect. WWE will absolutely never, even if they ever shorten the pay-per-view schedule, they will never go back to just 4 pay-per-views a year. TNA did it like 10 years ago. They went from having monthly pay-per-views to like the quarterly pay-per-views, but that's because those monthly pay-per-views weren't making any money. And they do the monthly specials now, but they're not on pay-per-view. They're on like their Impact Plus service. But anyway, I love this question. And the thing is that when you guys ask me fantasy booking questions, I do enjoy doing them, but if it takes a lot of thought, sometimes I either just don't have the time to answer it, or just, it's hard to say. I'm not a big fantasy booking guy. For example, answering the ever-asked question of who would be your Ultimate Survivor Series team? I have no fucking clue. I mean, that's like the hardest question to answer, because I have no idea. I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not that creative. I love this question, though. I love this question because I'm very passionate about the pay-per-views. And you caught me at a perfect time, because I was just playing before Raw, actually while Raw was on Monday, and I caught up on Raw afterward, the SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 General Manager Mode. Alexis is Raw, I'm SmackDown, we go back and forth. We're in year 2 currently. So I'm still on that high of booking pay-per-views and having brand-exclusive pay-per-views. I don't think we'll ever get back brand-exclusive pay-per-views. And the thing with those, it was a give and a take. Because when WWE was doing those back in 2016, 2017, 2018, the thing with the brand-exclusive shows was that because they were brand-exclusive, they were doing 2 a fucking month, which was a lot. They would do 1 for Raw, 1 for SmackDown, and then obviously the quarterly pay-per-views. So I'm glad those days are done, and that we have less than we did a few years ago. But I think having a pay-per-view every other month would be ideal. You can't have that. According to your rules, and I agree, WWE will probably never go back to doing that. They have a pay-per-view at least once a month, if not sometimes 2. They literally did last year, the Payback pay-per-view, the week after SummerSlam. I mean, that was fucking ridiculous. And it wasn't a very good or memorable show as a result, because the build was so rushed and it was completely pointless. So anyway, this would be what my pay-per-view schedule would look like. I took 10 minutes to come up with what each pay-per-view would look like for each month of the year. If you like the current pay-per-view schedule with what WWE has now in 2021, you're going to fucking hate my schedule because mine is drastically different. If you're a fan of the old school schedule, the old pay-per-views from 15 years ago, you will probably like my lineup. So this is what I have, and I changed a few things around after I had my finalized setup, my finalized lineup. So this is what it would look like. January, obviously, Royal Rumble. You can maybe do a New Year's Revolution show. I wouldn't do a pay-per-view, but maybe a themed episode of Raw or SmackDown for New Year's Revolution, like what NXT did with New Year's Evil. I think that'd be perfectly fine. February, no Elimination Chamber. Easily one of the worst pay-per-views of the year every fucking year. I mean, honestly, I have not seen a great... I think this year's was like a couple of matches long, so it was decent. But before this year, I had not seen an above average Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in close to a fucking decade. So, I'm glad that, I'm glad that, or I'm not glad of anything. I wish we didn't have that pay-per-view. I would just rather bring back No Way Out. So what I would do in a perfect world would not have a pay-per-view in the month of February at all. I would not do a pay-per-view before WrestleMania. I think the Rumble and then Mania would be perfect. But if you insist on doing a pay-per-view that month, fuck Elimination Chamber. I'm glad that this year, that's what I was going to say. I'm glad that this year's show was decent. But every other installment for the last decade has been completely pointless. And I think doing a chamber match before Mania is also pointless, because I feel like by the Rumble, you have a pretty good idea of who the champions are and who they're going to be and what you're going to do. You can do a special episode of Raw or SmackDown between Rumble and Mania. But to do an Elimination Chamber match when almost always the champions retain, literally it has happened like close to 10 times in the last 10 years. With how much the odds are stacked against these people, it makes no sense for them to retain their championship every freaking time. Statistically, that makes no sense. So, I would get rid of Elimination Chamber. Similar name, wouldn't do the chamber concept unless it was absolutely necessary, but I would do No Way Out. I thought No Way Out was the perfect interim pay-per-view between Rumble and Mania. At least when we had No Way Out, and the names really don't matter, it's a matter of the WWE booking, but at least when we had No Way Out, pre-Elimination Chamber, it felt like a notable show. In 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, No Way Out was among like the best pay-per-views of the year for WWE. So I would bring back No Way Out. I hate having two pay-per-views, let alone one before WrestleMania. So if we're doing one each month here, I would just move WrestleMania to late March. I like it in April. I like it in the first weekend of April. But if it prevents from doing two pay-per-views before Mania, I would just move Mania to the end of March. So Rumble in January, No Way Out in February, WrestleMania in March. April I would do Backlash, and not this WrestleMania Backlash shit, just Backlash. I think Backlash, not Payback, not WrestleMania Backlash, solely Backlash, is the perfect follow-up for Mania. May, this is where we kind of get into the older pay-per-views here. And Backlash is an older pay-per-view, but they've used it in recent years. May, I would bring back Judgment Day. I thought May was the perfect month for Judgment Day. And I would make that a Saudi show. So unfortunately, I would get rid of the Crown Jewel and the Super Showdown names because they suck. And they have so much, like, people hear Crown Jewel and they think, oh, that show was terrible, which it was in 2018 and 2019. So I would just get rid of the names and do Judgment Day, which is, I guess, kind of fitting given the country and what's happened over there, unfortunately. I would do that in the month of May. So I would do the Saudi show in May and call it Judgment Day. June, I would do King of the Ring. Now, I was contemplating doing Money in the Bank, where would I put it? Because it is consistently one of the best pay-per-views WWE does all year. I don't think you could do King of the Ring and Money in the Bank, and I guess you can, because, I mean, this company has gimmick pay-per-views every fucking month. But honestly, I do like Money in the Bank as a standalone pay-per-view. But I just, at that point, if we're going to have King of the Ring, you can't do King of the Ring at Mania, but you can do Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. So I would move the Money in the Bank ladder matches with the men and the women to WrestleMania, do two of them in the same night, They have the frickin' Battle Royals anyway, so who cares? Just get rid of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, and then just do the ladder matches instead. And then make the June pay-per-view King of the Ring. We haven't had King of the Ring as its own standalone pay-per-view since, what, 2002? So they've done the tournament since then, just on Raw and SmackDown. It's, 2019, the tournament was great, but Corbin winning, he's still wearing the crown now. Can we only have the pay-per-view solely so Corbin can lose the damn thing? That would be wonderful. But yeah, King of the Ring in June. July, again, that's where I was going to put Money in the Bank, but because I'm not, bring back Great American Bash. I know it's been a takeover, or not a takeover, but like an NXT theme show before, and it was last year as a 2-week event. Bring it back as an actual pay-per-view on the main roster, because I think that is perfect for the month of July. August, obviously, is SummerSlam. September, I would do Unforgiven, which we have not had since 2008, not Breaking Point. I wouldn't do Extreme Rules. Honestly, I would get rid of Extreme Rules. I used to enjoy that pay-per-view, but they've completely bastardized the damn thing to the point where it doesn't mean anything. I would get rid of Extreme Rules. I would get rid of Hell in a Cell, which, needs no explanation. I would even get rid of Clash of Champions, because the whole idea of every championship must be defended, you should probably be doing that at all your shows anyway. Again, you could do Clash of the Champions as like a themed episode of Raw or SmackDown if you want, but as a pay-per-view, I don't think it's entirely necessary in 2021. So make September Unforgiven. October, I'm going to break my own rule here and do 2 pay-per-views in one, because they want both. I like the idea of having both pay-per-views in the month of October. So Unforgiven would be like maybe 3 weeks after SummerSlam in early September. A month after Unforgiven, in early October, I would do No Mercy and make that the Saudi show. Again, fitting given the name of the pay-per-view and the country they're in. Unfortunately, just given the circumstances in recent years. Much better than Crown Jewel, but I would do No Mercy in Saudi in early October. Then 3 weeks later at the end of the month, you probably know where I'm going with this, but bring back Halloween Havoc as a pay-per-view. In the themed episode of NXT last year, I have a Halloween Havoc poster right behind me from NXT last October. Was one of my favorite NXT shows they've ever done. But you can bring back as a regular pay-per-view too. Put some thought and effort into it with the costumes and the setup. Put some more WWE of that machine behind it, with the presentation and whatever. So bring it back as a pay-per-view. Fuck Hell in a Cell, completely pointless. Do Halloween Havoc instead, which has not been a pay-per-view in over 20 years. WWE hasn't done they did it as a TV show, but before that they had not used it as a pay-per-view since WCW was doing it in 2000 and the years preceding that. So Halloween Havoc at the end of the month. In mid to late November is Survivor Series, and then the final pay-per-view of the year, not TLC, but Armageddon. I like TLC sometimes, but again, the idea of forcing a tables match and a ladder match and a TLC match, it's just not necessary. Armageddon was which I had not seen a lot of love for in recent years because it hasn't been brought back since 2008 and not a lot of people have talked about it. But Armageddon was a great show, I think, back in the day. A lot of those installments were very solid, enjoyable, better than most of the TLC shows in recent years. So, again, I don't think you need gimmick pay-per-views for every month, especially in the Network Peacock era where people aren't signing up for these gimmick pay-per-views. They started doing it in 2009 when pay-per-view numbers were down and the buy rates were in the friggin' toilet. So they started doing theme pay-per-views every month to encourage people to watch the shows. And it may have worked for a year. It hasn't worked in a long time. If anything, it makes the matches on these shows feel less special. To have Hell in a Cell, it's October, time to do Hell in a Cell, or it's December, time to do TLC. It's April or May or June, let's do Extreme Rules. You know what I mean? So just get rid of it altogether. So one more time, here would be my pay-per-view lineup. January Royal Rumble, February No Way Out, late March, WrestleMania, April Backlash, May Judgment Day in Saudi, because we have to, June King of the Ring, July Great American Bash. How funny would it be to do Great American Bash in Saudi? That would be so stupid, but July Great American Bash, August SummerSlam, September Unforgiven, early October No Mercy in Saudi, late October Halloween Havoc, November Survivor Series, and December Armageddon. I feel like my old school fans here from the mid-2000s are going to love that lineup. People who enjoy the current lineup and don't want anything to change are probably going to hate it. So let me know what you think. I put a lot of thought into that, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. So thanks to Brandon for sending in that question. I love stuff like that. No L from Facebook. Thoughts on the Brian Pillman episode of Dark Side of the Ring? First of all, we're 35 minutes in here, and I've only answered like 3 questions. I apologize, but they're great questions. We'll try to go a little quicker with these next few, with the rest of them. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And enjoy is a weird word because it was such a sad episode, specifically part 2. I mean, part 1 was pretty shitty too with what happened to Rochelle and the Melanie stuff. Oh, she's just despicable. But everything else, aside from when she was interviewed by Vince, that was pretty despicable too, not for anything that she did. But, hearing about Brian Pillman Jr.'s stepdad and the people that he lived with, and I think Brittany may have lived with them too, was just completely shitty. But I thought it was a great episode, and Dark Side of the Ring is such a good show. Such a good show. I don't know how I didn't get on it when it first came out 2 years ago. I was going to say 3 years ago. But it premiered in 2019. It had a lot of people telling me, oh, have you seen it yet? Are you going to watch it? And I just never got around to it until early last year when I was catching up on the episodes before the premiere of Season 2. And I think I watched every episode of the Lexus because we watched them all. I think we watched the Bruiser Brody episode and she liked it, so we watched the Macho Man one and the Montreal Screwjob. We watched every episode. The Von Erichs one was some deep shit. And we enjoyed every episode. The Benoit one was very good. The Owen Hart one was really good. All of them. So I'm looking forward to Season 3. I talked about that last week, but yeah, the Brian Pillman episode is some heavy shit. And I already reviewed it here for the channel the next day, too. I'm thinking of doing the Dark Side of the Ring reviews on the Fridays. As long as I have a chance to do them, I have time, whatever. Just given the current schedule of the show, I should have a review up of each episode every Friday for as long as the first half of Season 1 is going on. So keep an eye out for that. No second question, do you think Jeff Hardy will go to AEW after his WWE contract is up? I would say no, because I feel like Jeff Hardy has said this before. I mean, Matt has said this before, too, and did the exact opposite, and I don't blame him, that he wants to end his career in WWE, where it started. Matt said the same thing, but because he was booked so poorly there towards the end, they weren't doing anything with him. Not even that he was booked poorly. They weren't even using the fucking guy. So why would he stay? I think in an ideal world, had they, beyond the tag team stuff, really done something with Matt, with the whole Woken character, or pushed the Bray Wyatt tag team more, or whatever, he probably would have stayed, to be honest with you. He really had no choice, though, because he felt like he had more to contribute, and he does. And AEW is an option, so why not go there? With Jeff, I feel like he's more loyal to WWE, and he always has been, granted, he was gone for 8-9 years when he left in 2009 and came back in 2017. But I feel like he's always been more loyal to WWE than Matt was, just because they always treated him like a bigger star. Definitely not currently. Definitely not at the moment. After what happened with him on Raw, losing to Jinder in 2 minutes, who gives a shit? Come on. Who gives a fuck about Jinder? Why would you have him beat Jeff Hardy? You know what I mean? What a joke. But anyway, I think Jeff has a lot more to contribute. People saying, oh yeah, he's old, so it makes sense. He is older. He's not 50. He's not 50. He's 40-something. He's not young, but so is AJ fucking Styles. I think him and AJ are around the same age. And not only that, but the guy can still go to an extent. He's still very popular. The outpour of criticism from people when he lost in 2 minutes to Jinder Mahal, and the week before when he lost the main event to Jinder Mahal, was more so than any, criticism I've seen for a guy like Rick. At this point, people aren't even complaining about Ricochet not being on Raw. People just don't care. But with Jeff Hardy, though, he's still very, very popular. And if they gave him a world title push, either towards the world title or for the world championship or whatever, I think a lot of people would get behind it. The Sheamus feud lasted a little bit longer than it needed to, and some of the material they touched upon was a little, But the matches themselves were good. He main evented SmackDown a few times. He had some very good matches over there. The Intercontinental title ladder match that he was involved in with AJ and Sammy was amazing. I don't know. I just don't understand why it's been a different story for him when it's the same people writing Raw and SmackDown. I guess that's the question we have to ask here. But he was booked very well when he first came back on SmackDown last year. Beat Sheamus a few times. He beat AJ for the Intercontinental Championship. And then he moves to Raw, and it's what happened? I don't know. I just don't understand. But would he go to AEW? It's possible. I don't think he would. But his contract also expires in a few years. By that point, he'll be in his mid-40s. AEW would pick him up in a heartbeat if they're still around by that point. I'm sure they will be. Because it's Jeff Hardy and they can make a lot of money in reuniting the Hardy Boys one more time. I think there's a chance. I don't think if I had to pick right now, despite how badly he's being booked at the moment, I don't think he would leave. Because you never know, in 6 months from now, he could be the United States champion again, or he could be towards the main event scene. It's been up and down for him ever since he came back to the company 4 years ago. So I think he's staying put, but yeah, there's a chance he could leave, especially if Matt, he's gone on the record and saying that he wants to team with Jeff one more time before he retires. And I don't get the sense that it's going to happen in WWE with Matt's, current gig in AEW and how well he's doing over there. So Jeff Hardy would have to go to him, and you never know. There's always the chance. I just don't think it will happen, despite how badly he's being booked at the moment, because I get the sense that he likes WWE. He doesn't really care too much about being booked poorly, because as long as he's there and he gets his music back at some point, Jeff, I don't really think gives a shit, but I guess we'll find out in due time. At Reborn Again from the Twitter machine, John Ritland from YouTube as well. Check out his show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Does great content. John's first question was, so on Raw, Shayna got cursed by a doll that looks like a 5th grade art project. Why? And I thought her teaming with Nia was bad enough. I don't know, man. I don't. The funny thing is that I missed that when it first aired, too. I saw Shayna lose, and even that made me roll my eyes. I'm like, she lost to a freaking running knee from Asuka. Unless that's Asuka's new finisher and I'm completely missing something here, because I didn't think it was. Why would she lose to a random knee? But the idea was that Shayna's leg gave out because of Lily. And I like the Alexa Bliss stuff more than most. I like the Fiend stuff too. But shit like that is just stupid. I mean, the acting isn't great anyway. And I think if it was anyone else, maybe. But because it's Shayna, she shouldn't be dragged into this supernatural bullshit. It depends who it is and who's being affected by it and who's involved in the storyline. Like, I enjoyed most of the Orton and Fiend stuff because Orton being booked like that didn't really bother me. But Shayna should be, come on, it's fucking Shayna Baszler. What the fuck? The days of her being booked dominantly as a women's champion are long gone if it wasn't already apparent enough. But yeah, her teaming with Nia has been awful. The team just sucks. Have not had any good matches, really. And the booking has been awful. And then to lose the way that she did on Monday was even worse. Holy shit, who gives a crap? John's second question, which was the more match-killing ending? The Sparklers for the Deathmatch Revolution or the Crash Pad for Blood and Guts? Well, the pushing off the top of the Blood and Guts cage was not a match ender. I guess neither was the Deathmatch one either. They were both post-match. I've seen people say this. It was absolutely the Sparklers. The Sparklers were fucking terrible. And that was for a pay-per-view. I don't care about the deathmatch crap anyway, and the match was good. The Sparklers were a straight-up botch. The falling off the cage from Jericho at Blood and Guts, that was just poor judgment in how they shot it. Honestly, the stunt itself, I didn't really mind. I think it would have been a cooler visual if you shot it from a different angle and you didn't see Jericho fall through like these boxes. So I can understand the comparison because I thought the same thing after it happened. I'm like, man, this company just can't catch a break with some of this stuff, Like once is bad enough, twice in the span of like 2 months is not good. No, but the deathmatch one was way worse. The Revolution ending was terrible. That botch, I know that was kind of beyond their control from what I can understand. The Blood and Guts one, they just fucked up. They should have shot that better. It was a cool stunt, but I think if you just shot it differently, I think it would have been more serviceable. For example, like a lot of the stuff that Jeff Hardy's done over the years, 2 spots come to mind. One, and this was more impressive, but when he jumped off of the Tron or whatever on top of Orton back in like early 2008, he obviously landed on a crash pad and not on Randy Orton, but you didn't see that though. He landed on the pad, but you didn't see it until I think you still saw the pad when they cut to Jeff like a couple seconds later. But it wasn't that obvious though. And it was an amazing spot, and it's widely regarded as one of the greatest holy shit moments in Raw history. The other spot that comes to mind was from that same year when he jumped off a production truck on top of Umaga and he did the Swanton Bomb. Again, clearly he didn't fucking hit him. But like, they took their time in moving the camera over to where Jeff was after he hit the move and, moving the mattress away and whatever. That was a cool spot. Like, again, I remember that because I'm like, holy shit, that's really cool. Like, they didn't show it because why? Clearly he didn't actually hit him, but it's like a movie. You didn't see it, so it didn't even really matter. It's the idea that it happened, But when they throw it in your face that it's fake or scripted or whatever, and choreographed, and they show you the mattress, that's just lazy. So, I do think the Sparklers were way worse. That was laugh out loud embarrassing. The crash pad was like, ugh. It was a head-scratching moment, and it's not like he actually should have fallen on the concrete. No shit. But, because people were actually arguing that. But if they just shot it differently, it would have been a lot different. John's third question here. So 3 different matches on Raw had talents distracted by the music of another talent playing. Was that lazy or lazy? I didn't really notice that until you brought that to my attention. I mean, I'm so desensitized by Raw at this point. Some of these things just don't register with me, but that is fucking lazy. I did think the show this week was marginally better than it has been in recent weeks. That is not saying anything at all, but it was marginally better. But now that you say that, I might have to knock it down another letter grade, because that is just, again, pure lazy booking. I talk a lot about AEW and how they do brawls after every fucking match. WWE is not off the hook here. I mean, they do the distraction finishes a lot. And it's just lazy. So, they both have their tropes that they need to knock off. The WWE ones, though, are just, I think, even more apparent and more lazy. Even lazier than the AEW ones. At the average grunt from Twitter's first question was, now that you know the answer to the first part of the question, you can answer the second part. Will a superstar ever win a world title while holding a tag team championship? So his question last week, remember, was what did John Cena, Batista, The Miz, Seth Rollins, Bob Backlund all have in common? I had no clue. He brought it to my attention, I think yesterday, that he was referring to world champions, or Benoit as well, world champions that won tag titles as world champion. I did not know that. I told him this on Twitter, I would have never guessed that, because I'm thinking what I know about these people in their world championship reign, specifically Benoit, and honestly, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I completely forgot that he won the tag titles as world heavyweight champion. I do not remember that. I mean, I wasn't watching at the time, but I remembered when he brought that up, but I wasn't watching Raw at that point, so and it was like a quick reign, too. I don't think they were ever defended on pay-per-view or whatever. I think he won them with Edge or something, wasn't he? And Edge was like the Intercontinental Champion. But I would have never guessed that. Bob Backlund, too, I also would have never guessed that, so it is a cool little trivia stat, though. But again, to answer his question, will a superstar ever win a world championship while holding a tag team title? Oh, yeah, I think it's possible. I don't know if we've ever seen that yet, but it's definitely possible that we could see like a 2-man power trip type scenario where they win the tag titles first and then the world championship, or one superstar wins the world championship. So will we? I'm sure we will at some point. I'm surprised, honestly, it hasn't happened already. But yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. Keep change and retire. Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, Money in the Bank. He said, I think you might have answered this before, so I apologize for the repeat. Maybe, but we'll answer it again here anyway. So keep change and retire. Rumble, Chamber, Money in the Bank. Keep the Rumble. I think it's a perfect concept as is. They've done it for 30 years now, but people are still excited for it for a reason. Money in the Bank, the match itself is great. The aftermath with who wins and shit is just terrible, at least in recent years. The booking of Miz, Otis, Corbin, Strowman, need I go on? I mean, it's just been awful. So I would change Money in the Bank, maybe to accommodate either less people or put it to WrestleMania. That's probably what I would change about it. And also change how the winners are booked. I mean, that's just a different story. But yeah, I would change the Money in the Bank ladder match, keep the Rumble, and retire Elimination Chamber. I like the Chamber, but it's probably the least exciting match of all the 3. Like, for example, I think in my mind, like, if I was to tell Alexis, what match would you rather watch, Money in the Bank, a Rumble, or Chamber? She would obviously say the Rumble, then probably Money in the Bank. Chamber, I feel like because, again, it's been so watered down in the last 10 years, people just don't care anymore. So if you retire that tomorrow, I don't think a lot of people would be that upset. Like, it was almost retired a few years ago when they didn't have the buildings to fit the previous structure back in 2015 or whatever. They did it in 2015, but like they did it in the month of May because like the setup, they didn't do one in 2016 either. So anyway, I think if you got rid of that, they wouldn't be that upset. His third question, considering the popularity of John Cena's U.S. title open challenge back in 2015, do you think a WWE TV World title could ever work? Basically a championship that the champion has to defend at every televised event, Raw, SmackDowns, and pay-per-views. I hate the idea of more championships. I really do. I think AEW does a great job of it. I mean, before recently, Darby wasn't defending the championship a ton. Cody was. Brody had a few defenses. Now Darby's having defenses like almost every week. But that is their de facto mid-card championship. Or their second tier, whatever they want to fucking call it. They don't have any other Intercontinental or United States championships. That is their secondary title. I don't think WWE needs another secondary title, personally. So I think just making one of the current championships and defending them more regularly would be better. I think defending the U.S. Championship more regularly would be better. Same thing with the Intercontinental Championship. I don't think you need a TV title on either show. I think you already have those championships. Just make them a TV title. Cena was essentially a TV champion back in 2015. And it was one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing they've ever done with that championship specifically. So, and one of the best parts of that year. So just make the current mid-card championships more, defend them more regularly, but don't do DQs after every freaking match. That's the key there, At noob_n_co1991, is there a champion, Is there any possibility that Charlotte Flair is going to be Alexa Bliss and Lily's first target? I believe it's a more obvious choice since Charlotte is the opportunity, as she calls herself. She doesn't even need a women's championship or need a women's title to be champion. It'll be a great non-title feud for Charlotte. Yeah, there's a chance of that. I saw Lily in the background of that Sonya segment a few weeks ago, or maybe that was last week. So I thought they were targeting Sonya, but Charlotte might make more sense, especially if Sonya goes to SmackDown, where she should stay anyway. But anyway, I don't know if it would be great. That's the thing. Like, an Alexa Bliss-Charlotte feud is fresh. Would it be great? I don't know. Because the Lily stuff so far has been questionable. I've enjoyed most of it. Would it mesh well with Charlotte? Potentially. It also brings up a question, is Alexa Bliss a face? What is she supposed to be? Because Charlotte is clearly the heel there. I mean, Orton was the heel, I guess, when he feuded with The Fiend, but I don't know. I agree, though. I do think a Charlotte feud outside of the championship picture is possible. I do not want to see Charlotte regain the championship on Sunday. I think you can have Charlotte lose, and then you can maybe build a Rhea and Charlotte at the next pay-per-view, and then have, Rhea finally beat her, or do it at SummerSlam or whatever. Maybe you don't even do the match soon, and you have Lily cost Charlotte the match, and that's what leads to Alexa Bliss and Charlotte, and you can hold off on Rhea and Charlotte for another day, because again, it's a triple threat, so Asuka can be pinned, and it's perfectly fine. And Asuka's lost enough where it doesn't even matter at this point. So I don't hate the idea. I do argue whether it would be a great feud or not, but it's an option. I don't really know what you do with Alexa Bliss. I think her and Shayna Baszler does not sound good at all. Charlotte, because she's more established, it could work. I think with the supernatural shit, you gotta do it with people that are established. Because if not, it's not gonna work. I don't think. Shayna is not established. She's a loser. Charlotte is, so it might work. I don't know. Especially with the creative and the booking and whatever. In a perfect world, it probably would be a great feud. Unfortunately, given the current circumstances and the company creatively, it might not be. At least with the women, because the women have been booked terribly on Raw, specifically. SmackDown too, but more so Raw. So I don't hate the idea, and maybe they'll do that. They might do that soon, so we'll see. There really isn't any other feud that makes sense. I mean, if they didn't have this pointless tag team division, then you have like Naomi and Mandy Rose, and I think Mandy Rose would have been perfect, but like because she's in a tag team, I just don't give a shit at this point. That's the problem. His next question, what are your thoughts on The Bad Batch, and do you and the doc plan on reviewing the series? I haven't watched it yet. I know it dropped on May the 4th last Tuesday. I think he watched it. I think he DM'd me and said it was good. I have not seen it yet. I don't know if I will see it. I looked it up on Disney Plus. It was like an hour. I just don't have the time to go and watch hour-long episodes. I think they dropped the whole series, didn't they? I mean, it's cool. Currently, no, to answer your question, we do not plan on reviewing it. I think, if anything, we might review random stuff in the next month or so until Loki comes back. I was at one point contemplating should we review the Star Wars movies or old Spider-Man movies and shit, which we might still do, or the old X-Men movies. I'm just more content taking a break before then, just because, for me personally, I don't know about Doc, but I just have a lot of shit going on. There's still a lot of stuff I have to catch up on. TV shows I have to review. I still have to go back and watch the biography episodes, and I want to review those here for the channel. I want to watch Most Wanted Treasures. I got to catch up on the Young Rock show. I'm not reviewing it, but I want to watch it. So we probably won't review it. We probably are just going to hold off on the reviews until Loki debuts in a month, which is coming up quickly. It's June 9th. So I think we'll probably just hold off till then. I might watch it. If it's good enough, then I'll watch it. But again, it's like the Mortal Kombat thing. People have asked me whether I've watched it or not, but I haven't heard many rave reviews. So if I don't hear any rave reviews, or hear a lot of rave reviews, then I probably won't waste the time in watching it. Same thing with Bad Batch. I've heard Bad Batch was good, but I really haven't seen a lot of buzz for it, so I probably won't watch it, at least not anytime soon. What are your thoughts on Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer that dropped this week? Are you excited to see one of the best Marvel villains in Carnage on the big screen? Also, which Spider-Man will make their movie debut? Are we getting a Spider-Man in the Venom movie? I didn't think that we would, or are. I mean, we're so close to the Spider-Man that's not Homecoming. What's the new movie called? Homeworld? Or some shit? I don't know. Whatever the new third movie is coming out in December. We're so close to it by the time that Venom comes out that I don't really think they would try to shoehorn a Spider-Man in there. I think they're trying to keep it separate from what I understand. I know Morbius had the Vulture, Michael Keaton's character, right? In the trailer for that movie. I don't know if Venom's going to be involved in any of that shit. It would be cool to see Tom Holland pop up. I would freak the fuck out. I just don't think that's going to happen. The Venom trailer I thought was good, though. I think it's PG-13. I thought the first movie was R. Is it? I don't remember. I thought it was R. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. This movie would have to be R too. If that movie was R and this isn't, that's just bizarre. Unless it's like, I don't know. I was going to say, unless it's like an MCU thing, but like I think Deadpool is going to be R. Deadpool 3 might be R. I'm pretty sure it will be R. So I don't know. But I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed the first Venom movie. My roommate from college is a huge Venom fan. Like he wanted to see that movie released for like a decade, probably longer. And we went to go see it together a few years ago. I drove up to Massachusetts just to go see it with them, and it was cool. So we're probably going to do the same thing when this one comes out in September, and we're looking forward to it. But yeah, I thought the trailer was cool, and we'll see how it is. I'm looking forward to just going to seeing movies in general. I saw that movie Nobody recently, and it was fucking great. I want to go see... I'll probably go see Fast and Furious. Obviously, any Marvel movies I'll go see. I don't know what else is coming out, but really any big movie that's coming out in a theater, I'll go see just because it's an excuse just to go to the movies again, which I haven't done a lot of, obviously, in the last year for the obvious reasons. His next question: with Jimmy Uso now back, will he join the Bloodline? With Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, or will he rebel against his family as a single star? You know, it could go either way. I think a lot of people are expecting, he's going to join them right away. Like, clearly, as seen on SmackDown, that might not be the case. They might drag this out a little bit. I had seen some people say maybe they do Jimmy versus Jey at the next pay-per-view, and if Jey wins, Jimmy has to join them. You know, honestly, I want to see the Usos back together. I think Jimmy feuding with them at first would be fine. Ultimately, all roads have to lead to them teaming up. The Usos are much better together than apart, and the tag team division needs them anyway. And they're better off as heels. So I would reunite them. I would put the Usos back in the tag team title scene at some point, maybe not right away. But them versus like the Mysterios at some point would be great. So, yeah, they might feud initially, because SmackDown needs more like singles baby faces anyway. But I don't know if Jimmy Uso is the answer to that problem. Jimmy Uso is not going to replace Daniel Bryan. Let's put it that way. So I think they could feud initially, but ultimately all roads will lead to Jimmy and Jey joining up with Roman, as they should, because that is a money faction right there, being led by Paul Heyman. That's amazing. Or really being led by Roman, and Paul Heyman's a part of it, but even still, it's a money faction. At Iwagu91, what are your thoughts on Roman Reigns' new entrance theme? I fucking love it. I thought I answered this a week or two ago, maybe not, but I love it. I've been listening to it nonstop. I had it in my head when I went to sleep last night. It's a great song. It's grown on me even more from when I heard it the first time 2 weeks ago. I like it that much. I really do think it's a great theme, and I think it fits him perfectly. It's cinematic. It has that big fight feel to it. It has that epic cinema score to it. Oh, I love it. So the guy's just a star right now, and giving him the new music, which was overdue anyway. Giving him new music was overdue, period. But giving it, making it great music was what made it that much better. And which is what I really appreciate about it, was that it's great music. So, yeah, I love the song. I really, really do. And if you don't like it, cool. I mean, that's fine, I guess. But I personally think it fits him to perfection. And I got to download it on my phone one of these days, on my iPod or whatever the fuck you call it. Just because I got to listen to it more on repeat. I think in headphones especially, it sounds amazing. So I love the new song. I think Rollins' new theme sounds cool too. But yeah, Roman's it hits different, as they say. At Iwagu's second question here, do you see the Mysterios winning the SmackDown Tag Team titles at WrestleMania Backlash? I could, but the thing is that I wouldn't do that. So what I would do, and I tweeted this out last Friday, the next pay-per-view, which they haven't officially announced yet, but I believe it's going to fall on Father's Day. How do you not have Rey and Dominic Mysterio become the first ever father-son, tag team champions? How do you not have them win the championships on Father's Day? Like, I know you could have them win it on Sunday, maybe lose it on Father's Day for, like, extra heat for fucking, Dolph and Roode or some shit, or the Usos. Come on, just have them win the belts on Father's Day. The Usos can always win it, like, literally the next pay-per-view. But that's what I would do. I would keep the belts on Roode and Ziggler. They've escaped every match as champions. Keep the Mysterios in chase mode. Do the title change, in my opinion, in June on Father's Day. It literally writes itself. Do you see Miro winning the TNT Championship tomorrow night, or tonight on Dynamite? I do, actually. I do. I think it clears up Darby to do the tag team match with Sting against, or Archer or whatever, against Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page at the pay-per-view. Darby's been a great champion. Miro, I think, needs it more. Darby's been champion for like 6 months now anyway, so him losing it now is, fine. He's had it long enough. He's had enough title defenses where it's okay if he loses it. So, yeah, Miro needs it more. He's breaking off on his own. He's a badass right now. He's got some momentum. I think Miro could really benefit from a TNT title reign. So, yeah, I do see Miro winning the championship tonight. I would definitely do the title change. His last question here, would you like to see Ricochet and Mustafa Ali come or return in Ricochet's case to NXT to challenge Kushida for the Cruiserweight Championship? Yeah, I don't see why not. It might label them as oh, they're Cruiserweight guys, but the thing is, they're not even on fucking Raw anyway, so who cares? They're literally on Main Event having matches against each other. So yes, anything is better than that. I mean, Main Event is fine. I mean, they're having good matches over there, but they should be having those matches on Raw, on NXT even. So if you're not going to do jack shit with them on Raw and you're just padding out your Main Event show, just put them back in NXT. Honestly, especially Ricochet, who had a lot of success there. Mustafa was never really there to begin with, but they're not doing anything on Raw anyway, so might as well just move them there. So yeah, I think that'd be cool. Ricochet and Kushida would be awesome. And I think Ali and Kushida would be amazing too. So yeah, I would totally do that. If only for a one-off. Like when Ricochet was challenged for the North American Championship, actually, on an episode of NXT by Tyler Breeze. At the time, it was a one-off. I don't think he returned to NXT at that point. It was just a one-off. But it was a really cool one-off, so yeah, I would totally do that same thing. Even if they lose to Kushida, it's not oh man, the main roster guy lost to Kushida, their stock is in the toilet. They're not even on the show, so who cares? You know what I mean? So I would totally do that. I would love to see it. Last question from @E138 from Twitter. What's going to happen this Sunday at WWE WrestleMania Backlash? Of the matches announced so far, of the two triple threats, I see Bobby retaining. I could see Drew winning the belt back by pinning Braun. There's a very real chance that happens. I think Bobby will retain. I think Bobby should retain. I see Rhea Ripley retaining. I think it'd be incredibly stupid, which, I mean, they could definitely do this, because it's unlikely they have both champions retain. But I'm going to go off on a limb and say they'll do it. In the two triple threats. I think Rhea retains by pinning Asuka. I do not want to see Charlotte as champion again. I mean, maybe at some point, but her ending Ripley's reign at a month is fucking dumb. Even if Ripley was to beat her back for the championship, what really is accomplished in that case? I would rather see Charlotte challenge Rhea with the roles reversed for Mania 36, and then Rhea has to beat her as the defending champion. That to me makes more sense. So, yeah, I hope and think that Lashley and Rhea will win. I think Roman is absolutely beating Cesaro. There's no doubt about that, clearly. I think the Mysterios will lose the tag team title match. I could see them winning, but again, I would do the title change. That's really more wishful thinking, if anything. But I think they'll win the titles next month at the next pay-per-view in June on Father's Day, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then for the SmackDown Women's title match, I see Bianca Belair beating Bayley. I think Sasha Banks, speaking of her, I think she is going to come in probably for a SummerSlam rematch or before then with Bianca. I think that makes the most sense. I would not put the belt back on Bayley here. That would make no sense. So I think Bianca winning is probably the most predictable outcome. Beyond that, I'm not sure what else there is. Let me check the Backlash card real quickly. I'm pretty sure that's all the matches, though, that I mentioned. Let's see. Backlash 2021. Let's see. What did I say? 5 matches there? I'm pretty sure those are all the matches currently announced for the show. Oh, no, there's also Damian and Miz. That was the last match that I missed. No, I think Damian's winning. Even with the Lumberjack stipulation, I mean, I was going to say nothing is gained from Miz winning, but Priest gains nothing from beating Miz again anyway. I mean, nothing is gained from this feud at all at this point, because Damien's already beaten him and Morrison a bunch of times, but because they're booked to look like such losers. But I would have Damien win. Clearly, there's absolutely no reason for him to lose at this point to The Miz of all people, who's been booked to look like a complete loser on the Raw roster. So, Damien for the win, absolutely. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 389 of the show here today for hashtag AskGSM on May 12, 2021. Bit of a longer episode than we've had in recent weeks, but I like to answer your questions in depth, and we had a lot of great questions this week, so thank you guys for that as always. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. With all that being said, once again, guys, check out my exclusive interview right now with former WWE Champion Drew McIntyre right here on the channel. It's also up in article form right now on Bleacher Report, so check that out. But yeah, the interview is not only up here on the channel, but it's also available in video form. I'll probably put it up on WrestleRant Radio either this week or next week or whatever. But yeah, so you can watch us talk over Zoom, and his name is like Big Mac or whatever, which is great. But yeah, the video interview is available in its entirety right here in the channel, covering topics not featured in the article. And we talked for almost a half an hour, and it was a lot of fun. You guys got to check it out. So please do that. Other interviews have gone up with Ryzen from AEW Dark. He was a great dude. That interview went up on Monday too. So that's this week's two big interviews. Check those out if you haven't already here on the channel. And of course, above all else, subscribe for more daily content, including those exclusive interviews, these Q&A videos every single Wednesday, the podcast excerpt from WrestleRant Radio every single Thursday. On Network and Chill, I break down Dark Side of the Ring, Miz and Mrs., Raw Talk, Talking Smack. Every Saturday, I have my SmackDown audio review as well. We also break down movies from Star Wars and Marvel and previews and everything else you could possibly imagine, including an unboxing video with a prize that I won from that WWE A&E contest, the Most Wanted Treasures contest. I was a runner-up. So I got my prize in the mail the other day. I filmed an unboxing video, and that's coming out, I think, on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So keep an eye out for that as well. But nonetheless, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.